There comes a time when the excuses run dry, when the warnings have been given, the opportunities have been laid bare, and yet the necessary action was never taken. People assume life will always offer another chance, that there will always be more time to correct their course, to take responsibility, to face the truth. But that assumption is a lie. There is a final opportunity for everyone, a last moment where change is still possible. And once that moment is gone, once the door closes, it does not reopen. The choices we make or refuse to make define our fate. And when the time runs out, there is no bargaining with reality. Today, I want to talk about what happens when people ignore their last chance, because for some, it's already too late. Personal responsibility is non-negotiable. Responsibility is not something you can reject without consequence. It's not a suggestion. It's the fundamental structure of a meaningful life. If you refuse to bear the weight of your own existence, that weight doesn't disappear. It simply crushes you in ways you never expected. People spend years, sometimes decades, avoiding what they know they need to do. They blame their circumstances, their past, or the world itself for their failures, believing that accountability is an option rather than a necessity. But here's the truth. Reality doesn't care about your excuses. The longer you evade responsibility, the more it compounds. Small problems become crises. Minor regrets turn into overwhelming guilt. Every day that you postpone facing the truth, the harder it becomes to fix what's broken. You can deceive yourself, tell stories that justify inaction, surround yourself with people who enable your complacency. But deep down, you know exactly where you've been negligent, exactly where you've let yourself and others down. And then one day, you wake up and realize the damage is irreversible. The doors you thought would always be open are locked. The opportunities you assumed would be waiting are gone. The relationships you neglected are broken beyond repair. And in that moment, you come face to face with a terrifying realization: you had your last chance and you wasted it. So what's the alternative? Take responsibility now, before the choice is made for you. It won't be easy. In fact, it will be painful. But the pain of discipline is far better than the agony of regret. Stand up straight, confront what you've been avoiding, and shoulder your burden. Because if you don't, it will crush you. The window of redemption closes. Time is an unforgiving force. It moves forward without hesitation, without concern for our struggles, our indecision, or our regrets. People often assume they will always have another chance to make amends, to change their habits, to step into who they were meant to be. But that assumption is dangerous. The belief that opportunities will endlessly present themselves is a delusion, one that leads people into a state of complacency until the moment of realization arrives, when they look around and see that the doors they thought would always be open have been sealed shut. This is the nature of redemption. It is not guaranteed, and it is not infinite. It has a deadline, and for many, the clock is much closer to midnight than they realize. The illusion of endless chances. We like to tell ourselves stories about time. We say, "I'll fix it later. I'll change when I'm ready. I still have time." And in some cases, that may even be true for a while. But what we fail to recognize is that every moment we postpone a necessary transformation, we reinforce the patterns that keep us trapped. Every day that passes without change makes change less likely. The brain is not just a passive observer. It adapts, it builds habits, it solidifies neural pathways. The longer you delay, the harder it becomes to act. And then there's the external world. People move on. Opportunities disappear. Relationships grow cold. The body ages. What was possible yesterday is not necessarily possible today. And what is possible today may not be available tomorrow. A man who neglects his marriage for years and then suddenly realizes he wants to repair it may find that his partner is no longer willing. A person who avoids responsibility at work, expecting to be given endless chances, may find themselves replaced. A society that ignores warning signs may wake up one day to find that the damage is irreversible. The nature of regret. There is no pain quite like the pain of realizing you missed your last chance. It is a unique form of suffering because it comes with full awareness, an understanding that the fault was yours, the warnings were there, and the time to act has passed. It's not just sadness, it's something deeper. Imagine standing at the edge of a vast ocean, watching the last boat disappear over the horizon. You were told to be there on time. You were given the map. You knew the schedule. And yet you convinced yourself that there would be another boat. And now, as the waves crash at your feet, you realize the truth. There won't be. This is how regret works. It's the echo of the choices we refuse to make. It's the weight of knowing that the only thing stopping us from changing was ourselves. Excuses versus reality. People make endless excuses for why they can't change. It's not the right time. I'm too tired. I'm waiting for the perfect moment. I'll start tomorrow. But here's the problem. Tomorrow is a liar. Tomorrow is a concept, not a guarantee. If you tell yourself that change will happen later, you are, in effect, saying it will never happen, because if you were serious about it, you'd start now. And the world is not required to wait for you. Other people will not put their lives on hold while you decide whether or not to take action. Relationships will not pause. Health will not pause. Opportunities will not pause. If you think that life will wait for you to be ready, you will find yourself left behind. The consequences of waiting too long. What happens when someone refuses to act while they still have the chance? The outcomes are predictable and often tragic. Relationships become unfixable. A father who neglects his children for years may one day decide to be present, only to find that they have no desire to reconnect. A friend who constantly takes without giving may eventually realize they've driven everyone away. Health deteriorates beyond repair. A person who ignores their body's warnings, believing they'll get healthy later, may reach a point where recovery is no longer possible. Addiction, left unchecked, often leads to a moment where the damage is irreversible. Opportunities vanish permanently. A talented but lazy individual may realize too late that their skills are outdated and the doors they once had access to have closed. A culture or civilization that ignores foundational values and warnings may reach a breaking point beyond which collapse is inevitable. A lesson from history. History is filled with examples of individuals and societies that ignored their last chance. Empires that grew complacent, assuming their dominance would last forever. Businesses that refused to innovate. Individuals who assumed they would always have time to repair what was broken. Look at Rome. Look at the collapse of civilizations that once believed they were untouchable. The warning signs were there. Economic instability, cultural decay, external threats. But they ignored them. And when the reckoning came, it was too late to turn back. And on a personal level, we see this every day. The person who waits too long to fix their finances and suddenly finds themselves in crisis. The individual who refuses to take responsibility for their character until they are left alone and unwanted. These are not rare cases. They are common because human nature resists change until the pain of staying the same outweighs the fear of transformation. But by the time that happens, it is often too late. What you must do now, if you're hearing this and you feel a sense of discomfort, good. That discomfort is a signal. It's your mind telling you that there is something in your life you've been avoiding, something you know you need to address but haven't. So what do? Identify the last chances you still have. Look at your life honestly. Where have you been delaying action? What relationships, responsibilities, or opportunities are still available to you, but not forever? Acknowledge that fear is the only thing holding you back. The reason people delay is not because they can't act, but because they are afraid. Afraid of failure, afraid of effort, afraid of what change might demand of them. But fear is not a reason to avoid action. It's a reason to move forward. Commit to immediate action. Stop waiting. Stop telling yourself there's more time. Stop assuming another chance will come. Whatever it is, start now. Have the conversation. Make the decision. Take the step. Because if you don't, you may wake up one day to find that the chance you were waiting for is gone. The door will close. Some people will hear this and ignore it. They'll say, oh, I'll think about it later. They'll assume that urgency is for other people, not them. But reality does not negotiate. It does not care about what you meant to do. There is no sympathy in the natural order for those who waste their final opportunity. There is only a simple truth. When the window of redemption closes, it does not reopen. And the only thing worse than failing is realizing too late that you had your last chance and you did nothing. The consequences of neglected duty, responsibility, is not just about personal fulfillment. It's about survival, about order, about the very foundation of a functioning life and society. When a person neglects their duty, when they turn away from what they know they must do, there are consequences. And these consequences are not always immediate, but they are always inevitable. You cannot abandon your obligations without paying a price. The longer you ignore them, the greater the cost. The man who neglects his health finds himself weak when he needs strength. The leader who avoids making difficult decisions finds himself at the mercy of chaos. The civilization that dismisses its core values crumbles under the weight of its own decay. This is not philosophy, it's reality. Duty, responsibility, commitment, these things are not optional. They are the price of existence, and if you refuse to pay it, you will suffer. And worse, the people around you will suffer too. The cost of neglect. Neglecting duty does not mean you are free from consequences. It means you have chosen to invite destruction, whether you realize it or not. This destruction manifests in three primary ways: the slow erosion of integrity, the collapse of structure and stability, the unforgiving judgment of reality. Each of these unfolds over time, like a disease that starts small but eventually consumes everything in its path. The slow erosion of integrity. A person who neglects their duty does not fail all at once. They decay in increments. It begins with small, seemingly insignificant choices. Skipping a responsibility just once because it's not a big deal. Making a compromise in their values, assuming they'll fix it later. Ignoring a warning sign, telling themselves it's not urgent. But small betrayals add up. Every time you turn away from what you know you should do, you weaken yourself. You train your mind to accept failure, to tolerate weakness, to justify avoidance. And once that process begins, it is very hard to stop. A worker who cuts corners once finds it easier to do so again. A father who misses one important moment in his child's life may miss the next 10. A person who lies to themselves today will believe their own deception tomorrow. You do not simply wake up one day as a failure. You decay into it step by step until you look in the mirror and realize you no longer recognize yourself. The collapse of structure and stability. Neglecting duty does not just affect the individual, it spreads outward like rot in a foundation. A society, a family, an institution. None of these things can survive if the people within them refuse to uphold their responsibilities. Consider a family where the father neglects his role as a protector and guide. He tells himself he's too tired to discipline his children, too busy to invest in their growth. At first, nothing seems wrong. The house is still standing, the routine remains, but over time cracks appear. The children lose respect for authority and their behavior worsens. The mother, left to carry the weight alone, grows resentful and distant. The household, once a place of stability, becomes filled with conflict and disorder. The same principle applies to entire civilizations. When the individuals who make up a society refuse to uphold their responsibilities, when they ignore duty in favor of comfort, everything begins to fall apart. Leaders avoid hard decisions to avoid criticism. Institutions decay because no one is willing to maintain them. Cultural values dissolve, replaced by indulgence and complacency, and by the time people realize what's happening, it's often too late. You don't see collapse immediately. You see it when the consequences become unavoidable. The unforgiving judgment of reality. There is one absolute truth about neglecting duty: it always catches up to you. Reality does not forget. If you ignore your health, your body will fail you. If you neglect your mind, your thoughts will betray you. If you abandon your responsibilities, life will eventually present you with a reckoning, a moment where you can no longer hide from the consequences of your own inaction. This reckoning is not always dramatic. Sometimes it's quiet. A realization in the middle of the night that you have wasted years you will never get back. A sudden understanding that the people who once depended on you no longer do, because you failed them too many times. A moment of clarity where you see, perhaps for the first time, just how much you've lost by refusing to carry your weight. And when that moment comes, it is unbearable. Because at that point, you cannot go back. The father who neglected his children cannot relive their childhood. The person who wasted years in avoidance cannot buy back time. The civilization that ignored its warning signs cannot undo its collapse. At some point, neglect becomes irreversible. And that is the harshest truth of all. What must be done? If you have been neglecting your duty, you must act now. There is no waiting for the perfect moment. There is only now. Identify what you have abandoned. What responsibilities have you ignored? Where have you allowed weakness to dictate your choices? What areas of your life are beginning to decay because you have failed to maintain them? Take immediate responsibility. If you have failed in your duty, admit it fully and without excuses. Apologize where necessary, but more importantly, change your behavior. Do not expect instant results. Restoration takes time, but it begins the moment you take action. Accept that pain is the price of redemption. The process of correcting failure is not comfortable. It requires effort, sacrifice, and sometimes suffering. The weak seek comfort. The strong seek discipline. If you wish to rebuild, you must embrace hardship as the necessary cost of setting things right. Do not wait until it's too late. If you are hearing this and you recognize yourself in these words, act now. Do not wait for a crisis to force you into action. Do not wait until you have lost everything before you realize what mattered, because by then the damage may be beyond repair. Truth and integrity matter more than comfort. There is a moment in every person's life when they must decide, will I stand for the truth or will I choose comfort? This is not a trivial choice. It is a defining one, because truth is costly. It demands something from you. It requires sacrifice. And for that reason, many people avoid it. They choose comfort instead. They lie to themselves. They conform to what is easy rather than what is right. But here's the brutal reality. Comfort is a weak foundation for a life. If you build everything around avoiding hardship, avoiding conflict, avoiding responsibility, then you are building your existence on sand. The moment pressure comes, when reality pushes back, it will all collapse. Truth, on the other hand, is solid. It is difficult, yes. It is uncomfortable. But it is the only thing that can sustain you when life becomes hard, when you face failure, when you are tested, and make no mistake, you will be tested. If you compromise your integrity for comfort, you are setting yourself up for destruction. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually the bill comes due. The cost of choosing comfort over truth. People deceive themselves into thinking that they can avoid hard truths indefinitely. They assume that by ignoring reality, it will somehow become less real. But the opposite is true. The longer you avoid the truth, the more power it gains over you. The consequences grow larger. The walls close in. And by the time you are forced to face it, the cost is far higher than if you had confronted it earlier. Lies erode your own identity. The most dangerous lies are not the ones you tell others, they are the ones you tell yourself. Every time you compromise your values, you become weaker. The person who stays in a job they hate because they fear change slowly loses their ambition, their creativity, their sense of purpose. The individual who remains in a toxic relationship, refusing to acknowledge the damage, slowly loses their self-respect. The person who refuses to take responsibility for their failures starts to believe their own excuses, and eventually they become defined by them. When you betray what you know to be true, you fracture yourself, you become divided, uncertain, lost, and over time, you forget who you really are. Integrity once lost is hard to regain. Integrity is like a muscle. If you do not use it, it weakens. The first time you compromise, it feels wrong. The second time, it's a little easier. The third time, it becomes normal. And before you know it, you have built an entire life on dishonesty. The person who tells a small lie to avoid trouble finds themselves telling bigger lies to maintain the illusion. The employee who cuts a small ethical corner at work eventually rationalizes full-scale corruption. The person who stays silent in the face of wrongdoing soon finds themselves complicit in it. The deeper you go, the harder it is to climb out. Some people reach a point where they can't return because they have constructed an entire identity around avoidance and deception. The world respects truth, not comfort. People assume that avoiding conflict, avoiding difficult conversations, and avoiding responsibility will make their lives easier. But in reality, it does the opposite. The individual who stands for nothing is not respected. The leader who refuses to make tough decisions is not followed. The person who prioritizes comfort over principle is eventually left behind. You may gain short-term relief by avoiding the truth, but in the long run, people see through you. They recognize weakness. They may tolerate it for a while, but they do not admire it. And when the time comes to decide who to trust, who to promote, who to follow, they will not choose the one who has spent their life running from reality, the courage to live in truth. If you want to build a life that is strong, meaningful, and resilient, you must make truth your foundation. And that means embracing discomfort. Tell yourself the truth, no matter how painful. Look at your life. What are you pretending not to see? Are you in a job that is draining your soul? Are you in a relationship that is built on fear rather than love? Are you making excuses for why you haven't pursued the things you claim to care about? Be honest, brutally honest, because until you face the truth, you cannot change it. Stop seeking approval over integrity. Many people abandon truth because they fear rejection. They want to be liked, accepted, validated. So they say what they think others want to hear. They suppress their real opinions. They conform. But here's the problem. If you shape yourself to fit other people's expectations, you are not really living, you are performing. And the irony is, the more you try to be what others want, the less they respect you. People may not always like the truth, but deep down, they admire those who speak it. Accept that truth is costly, but worth it. Telling the truth may cost you relationships, it may cost you comfort, it may cost you security, but what you gain is something far greater. Self-respect, clarity, and the kind of inner strength that cannot be broken. The person who lives in truth is unshakable. They do not have to remember their lies because they have told none. They do not have to fear being exposed because they have nothing to hide. They do not crumble under pressure because they have built their foundation on something real. Do not sell your soul for comfort. If you choose comfort over truth, you will pay the price. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually. And when that moment comes, you will look back and realize that every compromise, every avoided truth, every moment of cowardice led you to exactly where you are. And the worst part, you will know that you did it to yourself. So ask yourself, do you want to live a life of easy lies or difficult truth? Because one of those paths leads to strength, integrity, and meaning, and the other, it leads nowhere. Weakness is a choice, and it has consequences. There is a dangerous lie being told in the modern world. The idea that weakness is something that just happens to people, that it's an unfortunate circumstance, that it's external forces to blame. But that's not true. Weakness is a choice. Not always in the moment, not always consciously, but over time, through every avoided responsibility, every surrendered opportunity, every excuse, a person chooses weakness. They shape themselves into something fragile, something incapable, something that will eventually collapse when life demands strength. And life will demand strength. That's not a question. The question is, will you be ready? The subtle process of becoming weak. People don't become weak all at once. It happens gradually. It happens in small, seemingly harmless decisions that accumulate over time. You skip the gym once because you're tired. Then you skip it again. Then a year passes and you've become someone who is out of shape, sluggish, incapable. You avoid conflict because it's uncomfortable. Then you avoid it again. Then suddenly you realize you have no voice, no boundaries, and no control over your own life. You neglect your goals because they seem overwhelming. You say, I'll start next week. Then next week never comes. Then 5 years pass, and you're in the same place you were before, except now you're older and the opportunities are gone. This is how weakness works. It's not forced upon you, it's invited in, piece by piece, through 1,000 tiny choices to remain comfortable instead of becoming strong. And one day reality confronts you with something you can't handle, a crisis, a betrayal, a challenge, and you realize too late that you are completely unprepared. The consequences of embracing weakness. Weakness does not come without cost, and the cost is everything that matters. You lose your own respect. When a person knows they are avoiding responsibility, something inside them shrinks. The man who runs from every difficult challenge begins to hate himself for it. The person who constantly gives in to fear knows deep down that they are betraying their own potential. The individual who refuses to build discipline starts to resent those who have it, because they are living proof of what could have been achieved. Weak people often project their weakness onto others, attacking those who are strong. They mock discipline, belittle ambition, criticize resilience, all because they cannot stand the reminder that they had the same choices and they chose differently. You become a burden instead of an asset. A weak person is not neutral in the world. They are a liability. The person who refuses to take care of their health will eventually need others to care for them. The individual who avoids responsibility forces those around them to pick up their slack. The person who never develops emotional resilience will constantly drain the energy of stronger people. If you do not cultivate strength, you will eventually find yourself in a position where you are not only unable to help yourself, you are actively making life harder for others. And no one respects a burden. Life will crush you when it tests you. There is no escaping hardship. You will suffer. You will experience failure, loss, betrayal, disappointment. That is a fact of life. But here's the key difference. The strong can withstand it. They adapt. They endure. They rebuild. The weak collapse under the weight. They break. They retreat into victimhood, blaming the world, instead of accepting reality and fighting forward. If you choose weakness now, you are setting yourself up for inevitable destruction, not because the world is cruel, but because you made yourself incapable of handling it. The path to strength? If you have chosen weakness in the past, there is only one thing to do. Stop. Stop making excuses. Stop lying to yourself. Stop pretending that tomorrow will be different if you change nothing today. Strength is built, not given. And the process is simple, but not easy. Do hard things every day. The only way to become strong is to expose yourself to difficulty on purpose. If you're out of shape, train your body. If you avoid confrontation, have the hard conversation. If you lack discipline, set a goal and stick to it. No matter how uncomfortable, you don't wait for motivation. You don't negotiate with yourself. You act. Take full responsibility for everything. Weakness thrives on blame. Strong people take ownership, even for things they cannot fully control. If your life is not where you want it to be, it's on you to fix it. If you were dealt a bad hand, it's still your responsibility to play it well. If you've made mistakes, own them, correct them, and move forward. The moment you accept full responsibility is the moment you reclaim power. Surround yourself with strength. Weakness is contagious, but so is strength. If your friends encourage laziness, avoidance, and self-pity, they are pulling you down. If the people around you make excuses, complain, and blame, you will start doing the same. Seek out people who challenge you, who push you, who hold you accountable, because if you surround yourself with the weak, you will remain weak. Strength is not optional. Some people will read this and dismiss it. They will tell themselves that they are fine as they are, that they don't need to change, that life will work itself out. But life does not work itself out. Life works you out. It tests you, whether you are ready or not. So ask yourself, will you be prepared when hardship comes? Will you be capable of carrying responsibility? Will you be someone who stands strong or someone who collapses? Because one thing is certain, you will face your reckoning. And when that moment arrives, there will be no more time to prepare. You will either be strong enough or you won't.